Hello everyone and welcome to a little bit of a different video. For quite a while now people have been asking me for like survival tips, growing tips, I keep dying while questing how do I get a dino to adult, so I thought I could finally sit down and kind of just go over some basic strategies on how to not die. Now I've been playing the game for 5 years. I have a pretty good grasp of survival, and a lot of this is going to be my personal experience and opinions. Some of you might have different opinions, different experiences, and that's okay. People are asking what I do, so that's what I'm showing. Now, a lot of what I'm gonna say should work for any dinosaur other than aquatic or semi-aquatics because they play very differently. But even for semi-aquatics, it should still be somewhat, applicable. So many waddies around right now bothering me while I'm trying to talk. So like, if you're growing an Eotrike or a base game T-Rex or something like Cerrado or even a, anything, my tips should help you not die while questing. I can't guarantee you won't die, but it should reduce your chances of dying, as it were. So, my very first tip, and it's a very important one, is the best way to not die is to not be found in the first place. Now, you might say, well, duh, but, that's easier said than done. You make it sound so simple, and there are things you can do. Like, alright, you have your vocal wheel here. My number one tip, starting first tip of the lesson, don't make unnecessary noise. It might be fun to hear your little baby Anno make his little sneezy broadcast, and it is cute, but you're also alerting every predator in the area that you're there and that you're a baby, and they're probably going to come investigate the noise and maybe try to eat you because, you're there announcing your presence. So, my first tip is try to be quiet. Don't make unnecessary noise if you can help it. Like, I never use my broadcasts unless I have to, or I'm in a safe location, like on a rock where people can't reach me. Then maybe I'll do a little eyeball. Maybe I'll eyeball people, but only when I know I'm safe. If I'm hunting or if I'm questing as a baby, I'm not making noise, because that's a good way to let people know you're there and get eaten. This video is going to be a mix of single player and playing on Primordial Tyrants server, because some things are going to be easier to show in single player and some things will be easier to show in multiplayer. So it's kind of going to be a mix of that. This one, I'm currently in single player at the moment because it's a little easier for the introduction and just getting all of this initial information out of the way without worrying about being attacked. But yeah, so step number 1 is don't make unnecessary noise while you're trying to grow and quest and hunt. This applies to hunting too, because even though the sounds have really been nerfed and don't travel as far, you can still give yourself away to somebody nearby. Step number 2 leads right from that is listen. Be aware of your surroundings, because you might be being quiet, but other people might be making noise, and that will let you know they're there, and you can hide or run away, or if you're hungry, eat them, So being aware of your surroundings is very important too. If you hear footsteps or someone roaring, or you hear people picking up quest items, then that might be a clue that you need to get out of there if you're a helpless little baby who's trying to survive. So listen carefully and try to avoid making any unnecessary noise, and you should have an easier time of not being eaten. Let's see. Step number 3 kind of ties into the subject of don't get seen in the first place, and that one is don't walk in the open. So let me get myself somewhere where I can show you what I mean. So, for those of you that have played a while, you'll recognize this. This is a nice little game trail. It's a path. It's a path right through the forest. It's so convenient, right? And you'll find these all over the map. We're currently in Dark Woods. But, Young Grove has a path. Triad doesn't really have paths, so you don't have to worry about that there. But, Whistling has a path. All these little all these little roadways here, they seem nice, and I say don't use them, because walking in the open is a good way to get spotted and eaten. If I can help it, I never walk in the open. I will always walk off the trail, like, oh no. And the same goes with little meadow clearings, you know, remember Bambi and his mother. You don't want to walk into the open because someone might see you and you might die. So I will, if I don't have to like go pick up quest items, I'm not walking in the open. I'm going to stay in the trees where it's harder to see me. And as a little baby, you want to stay where no one can see you because you're not going to be able to run away from adult predators very well as a baby. But, you know, what if you're like, but I need to quest? Well, yeah, I mean, obviously. So, like, if you need to quest and you need to go into the open to quest, like right here where all these plants are, and it's in the open, but you need, let's say you need flowers. Well, that's when you kind of just, you make sure there's no one around, you know? You don't just charge in willy-nilly. You kind of just, you sit, you listen for a moment, you try to make sure no one's around, and then you get your items and you get out of there, you know? Like, when I'm growing, I try to minimize how often I'm in the open as much as possible. Because as a baby especially, your first line of defense is just not to be found in the first place. And now this also leads me into another thing. I think forests, like dark woods, are a great place to grow baby dinos. And that's because it's so easy to hide. Like, if there was a baby dino here right now, just sitting in the trees, I'm not gonna see it unless it runs or makes a noise. Like, all these trees, all these forests, all these bushes, I mean, not forest, obviously, but all these trees, all these bushes, this is a great place to hide and sneak out, get quest items, and then hide again. And, you know, so when I'm growing a dinosaur, I try my best to get to the forests in the south, alright? This will be easier if I use a different program. Hold on. Okay, so here we are in my art program real quick, where I have a map that I made of the world, alright? So the places I like to grow, I'm going to make them in green. I think good places to grow are Triad Falls, alright? But not the area up, here, let me zoom in a little. So Triad Falls, but not the big lake. I should probably make this smaller, sorry. So here's my reasoning. Triad Falls has good quests. It has 2 freshwater sources. One of the quests is a little annoying, but it's still doable. And there's a lot of trees to hide in. It has decent critter spawns, so as a carnivore, you should have plenty of food. However, I do not recommend the big lake because predators are up there. So I do not recommend White Cliffs because it's very open. There's not many places to hide. I do not recommend Impact Crater or Grand Plains because, again, they're very popular. They're full of people who will eat you. They're very open and hard to escape people in. Now, Young Grove is technically a forest, but it's also a very popular spot. So Young Grove, I'm going to put in yellow because it's a place you can quest, but do it cautiously. Be aware there could be people there to eat you, and sometimes there are gators in the water. So, you know, be careful if you're going to quest in Young Grove. It is a good spot, but you might get eaten. Now, Dark Woods is another good spot. Again, though, sometimes there are gators in the water, and you do have open areas where you're going to have to cross in the open. But as long as you're careful and stealthy and really listen to make sure no one's around, you should be okay questing there. I also like Whistling Columns. However, this side, the left side, the west side, is the side with all the quests. I shouldn't expand it up there because that's part of it too. This east side does not have that many quests, but Whistling has a lot of good quests, lots of fresh water, and it's also a forest, so it's easy to hide. So when I'm growing a dinosaur, my usual strategy is to try and get to Whistling or Triad, and then I walk through to one side, and then I walk back questing as I go, and I just stay in the forest. And it works for me. I rarely ever lose a dinosaur. Like, I'm not guaranteeing you won't find people in these areas and you won't get eaten, but it seems less likely. Now, there are some other good spots. Broken Tooth is a fantastic questing spot. And there's also a lot of places to hide. I highly recommend Broken Tooth. It's a good spot. And Stego Mountain has some good quests. There's a couple of bad quests that I do not do if I get them. But if you get like branches or succulents or bloodstones, you can do those. Those are easy enough to do. So I recommend Stego. I recommend Broken Tooth. Hudo can be good. Actually, Hudo should be in yellow, actually. Let's put Hudo in yellow. Hudo can be good. It does have some annoying quests, like the Gifts from the Sea, where you have to get seashells and turtle shells. My problem with Hudo is that it's right next to Salt Flats. And now, Salt Flats is a good place to quest, but I don't recommend it. Why? Because it's very open, and people know to go there to look for questing babies. So even though Salt Flats is a good place to quest, I do not go there unless I'm in a group of people, because a single baby there is going to be eaten almost definitely. And I say this from experience, because any of you have watched videos of mine for any length of time, you know that I eat a lot of people in Salt Flats. So I'm speaking from experience here. Don't quest in Salt Flats. Now you realize that by making this video, I'm making my life harder, because by educating the people that I normally eat, I'm going to probably have a harder time eating, but I feel like people need to know this stuff. And Dried Lake is actually the same. There's a lot of good quests in Dried Lake, but people know to go there to look for questing babies, and it's relatively open. You're probably going to get eaten. And now I do not recommend Green Valley or Green Hills, because again, they're really wide open places with nowhere to hide, and predators are probably going to get you. Now you can quest in Big Quill if you want, but be careful, because people do walk through Big Quill a lot to go from Salt Flats to Green Hills. So as people are walking through there, you're going to be risking being seen. However, a good spot that I never see anyone at, Sand Caverns. Sand Caverns is a decent spot to quest. I do not quest in Birchwoods myself, but I mean, I guess it's a potential spot. Same with Titan's Pass. I don't really go there. I don't have much of experience with these two places. I don't go there, so that's kind of up to you if you think it's worth it. Now, I also recommend Rockfall Hill and Rainbow Hills. They have good quests. They're relatively not traveled by players as much, and Rockfall has places where you can hide. Ocean Pillars can be decent, but I only do some of the quests, not all of them. Burned Forest is one of those where I would say be careful, because while it has good quests, people do go through there on their way from Green Hills to Hot Springs and up into the rest of the map. So people travel through Burned Forest. Be careful if you quest there, because it's very open. I do not recommend Snake Gully, because again, it's very open and people are going to eat you if they see you. Hot Springs is hit and miss, but I try not to go there because it's obvious if you're there, there's not really anywhere to hide. I do not recommend Savannah, and Hunter's Thicket can be okay. You just, especially this area right here, is pretty good quest-wise for Hunter's Thicket. You just have to be careful. I have no opinions on Desolate Pass because I don't quest there, so that's just a big question mark to me. And the swamp, I imagine you don't want to quest in the swamp. But yeah, so my main areas to quest, I recommend going to thick forests where you have lots of cover, like Triad, Darkwoods, Whistling. The areas of the desert can be good, like Broken Tooth and Stego. I would avoid anywhere that's wide open, like Salt Flats, Dried Lake, Green Hills, Grand Plains, Savannah. Avoid open areas. Stick to tree cover where you have lots of places to hide. And like I said, I tend to go into the forests and just loop back and forth. Sometimes I will go from Triad to Young Grove to Darkwoods to Whistling, and then I'll follow the southern edge of Green Valley to go to Broken Tooth. And Quest and Broken Tooth as well. Oh yeah, I also don't like Ripple, by the way. I don't like Ripple. It's very open, especially this beach area here, and people check there for people to eat. I do it too. I check for people to eat in Ripple as well. So if you're wanting a good my recommendations on where to quest, it's the South Forest or the North area. But I definitely prefer the trees over the north. But if you end up in the north, it's not the end of the world. You can still do relatively all right. Now, if I end up here, I tend to travel... Let's change my color to pink. I tend to travel from... if I spawn in Rockfall, I'll quest there. Then I'll go to Rainbow. And I follow the coast south. And then I'll cross over into Green Hills. I go through Sand Caverns. I will go along the edge of Big Quill and up the back way into Dried Lake, into Whistling, and then I will do my forest path. So if I spawn in the north, that's how I get south. So that's how I do things. Other people might be different. I'm just showing you what I do since people were wondering. So here's another useful tip, alright? Managing your stamina. Now, I see this a lot with people where you just sprint everywhere you go. And I get it, some dinosaurs especially move really, really slowly, and you kind of just want to get to where you're going. However, you have to remember that if you run out of stamina and then someone attacks you, you're kind of screwed, because you can't run away. And not only that, some dinosaurs require stamina for some of their attacks. So by completely depleting your stamina, you also won't be able to attack. My rule of thumb, especially when traveling, is to run. If I need to run, I run until I'm 50% stamina. I never go under half stamina if I can help it. Because you want to have a little bit of that stamina in reserve to use in case you need it, Like, you don't want to be completely out of stamina. And I've killed people because of that. Like, I've hunted people who have wasted all their stamina, so they weren't able to actually run away from me, and I was able to, actually get them, when normally I would not be able to get them. So, it's a good rule to never use all of your stamina, and try to, and especially when you're traveling, try to make sure you keep about half of it there for if you need it. So, random Tyrannotitan just gave me a Kentro Spike or something, but this is another good survival lesson. Not every player is going to be friendly. Like that one was. That was a nice friendly player. But a very good rule of thumb is to not trust other players, especially if you're playing on official servers. Players aren't always friendly. Actually, almost guaranteed on officials, they're not friendly. Like, I have not met friendly people on officials. No offense to those of you who play officials. Maybe I've just never run into the right people. But in my experience, people on officials are more likely to kill you than be friends or be nice. So, like, in this situation, I was given a trophy, which, wow, that's cool. But just be cautious. When another player is approaching you, or when you approach another player, just be ready to run, because it might be a trick, And some players will do what is called the crouch dance, which says, hey, I'm friendly. Now, don't always believe it, because people will do the crouch dance and then kill you anyways. And this also just because they're a herbivore does not mean they're nice. Especially on officials, herbivores will kill you just as quick as a carnivore will. So, like, this is a good example of there are nice players out there who will be friendly. But don't rely on that being true. Like, if they're friendly, great, but always approach encounters with other players with a little bit of suspicion, a little bit of caution. Like, don't walk up to someone and assume, hey, this person must be friendly. They crouched at me, because that's a good way to wind up dead. So especially if you're trying to grow a baby, just be a little careful around other players, because even if they seem nice, it could just be a trick to get you closer for them to eat you. And same with herbivores. Even though they can't eat you, some herbivores will kill you anyways. So that's another good tooltip of... Sorry, that video cut off for all of a sudden. That recording cut off all of a sudden. But, yeah. Basically, that's another good lesson. is just be careful around other players because you cannot guarantee that they're going to be nice people. So let's see, what have we covered so far? Be quiet, don't make unnecessary noise. Don't walk in the open unless you absolutely have to. Try to stick to cover like bushes and trees. Try to stay out of the open and off paths so that you're less likely to be seen. And 3, be careful and don't trust other players because, you know, they could be nice, like that Titan right there was, or they could be wanting to murder you. Alright, so now that we turned in the trophy, let's go into tooltip special guidance level number 4. I'm winging this. I don't have a script, so if I like fumble my words, I'm sorry. I don't usually script my videos. I kind of just, you know, go at it and wing it. So, you know, bear with me. This is probably not super professionally done, but I'm kind of just playing and talking. This would probably be easier if I was in single player, but, you know, it's better to show you how to survive on a server with other people. So number 4 of ways to not die. Let's talk about drinking water. And I don't mean like drinking salt water. Don't do that, don't do that. Don't drink salt water. I mean, how do you drink water without getting eaten by crocodiles, especially on community servers that have Deinosuchus? Well, my first answer is don't drink from big water sources where you cannot see the bottom of the water. It is always better to avoid drinking from deep sources and go travel to little sources. There's usually water not far away in small ponds compared to the big one. Like, instead of drinking from Green Valley, go drink from Stego Mountain. Instead of drinking from Grand Plains River, go drink from this tiny little pool right here. Or, you know, there's a couple of little areas along the edges here that are relatively safe, like right here. Like, instead of drinking from the big water source, go drink from the little water sources. There's usually one nearby. Even over here at Impact Crater, instead of drinking there, you could go to Wilderness Peaks, or Triad has these 2 little lakes down here that you could drink from instead of drinking from the big lake. Instead of drinking from Young Grove River, drink from the Dark Woods pool, though I have seen gators there, so be careful with that. Now, Young Grove, if you see, there's this teeny tiny little spot right there where the waterfall starts below the lake. That is really shallow and usually a safe place to drink. Now, Whistling Columns is awesome because all of that is safe water, but also you could drink from along the edge of this lake right here because there's a lot of trees there to hide you. So, like, the best way to not get eaten by crocodiles is not to give them the chance to eat you in the first place. But let's say you don't have that option. Let's say, well, I'm a slow baby, I'm dehydrating, I have to drink from the big lake. Well, in that case, you want to try and find a spot that's going to make it difficult for them to attack you. It's probably not going to be impossible for them to get you, but you want to make it difficult. You want to give yourself time to get away. So let's take Big Quill here, for example, because I am thirsty. Well, Big Quill has a couple of really shallow areas that you could drink from, and like I said, they're not guaranteed to not have you get hit, but you're a little better off. Like right here, they can still lunge out and grab me, but it's not as easy. And also, I can usually see them coming and have time to just bolt and run away. You want to drink from the shallow ends, you want rocks, you want stuff in the way that they're going to get stuck on as they're trying to grab you. So if you have to drink from a large water source because you're like a baby T-Rex, you can't possibly walk to a smaller pond, you're thirsty now kind of thing, then try to pick where you drink from carefully. So that's another good tip is don't get eaten by crocodiles by preferably just drink from shallow water where you can see the bottom and guarantee, hey, there's no crocodiles here. Or 2, if you have to use a big lake, try and drink from a shallow area where they're going to have a harder time grabbing you or seeing you at all. Because some lakes have like trees and bushes right up against the edge of the water. That would be a good place to drink from. Because if they don't see you, they're not going to know to come grab you. So to add on to the how to drink safely from potentially crocodile-infested waters, let me show you another example. You know, I showed you drinking from a dangerous but shallow area that made it a little hard for them to get you. let me show you here in Rockfall Hill another sort of one. So here you have all kinds of obstacles in the way. You have all these waterfall rocks, and then you can just sit right here and drink. Now again, you're not guaranteed safe, but making it harder for them to grab you by surprise can increase your chances of escaping and surviving. And also making it harder for them to see you in the first place would also help. So like if we came over here and hugged this rock edge and just, you know, just like this, you'll be a little safer than if you just walked to the edge of the lake and started drinking. So this is just another example of if you have to drink from a big lake that might have crocodiles, try to find a spot that is both shallow, like this is, and also will put obstacles in the way, like all those rocks. You want to make it as difficult as possible for them to just grab you and run away with you. You want to have a chance to escape, so making it harder for them to get you in the first place is a good solution if you have to drink from a big lake. But I still definitely recommend, when possible, just walk to a smaller pond of water and drink there instead, because it'll be safer guaranteed than trying to drink from a big lake, even with these little tips and tricks I'm showing you. So let's talk about feeding yourself, mainly as a carnivore, because it's really not that hard to feed yourself as a herbivore. But let's talk about feeding yourself as a baby carnivore who's trying to grow. It can be very difficult because critters can be hard to catch, and not all of them are worth your effort. So let's take this wadia, for example. Let's see how many hits it takes to kill it, and what kind of food we get from it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn around, dude, turn around. Let's go back the other way. Turn around, there you go. 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10. So he took 10 hits to kill, and he gave me a small meat chunk, a medium meat chunk. So for 10 hits, we got 1 small meat chunk and 1 medium meat chunk. So let's try this turtle. Why not? And now remember, as a baby, that wadia is going to attack you, not just run away. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he gave us a small meat chunk. And he gave us another small meat chunk. So 4 hits, 2 small meat chunks versus 10 hits and 1 small meat chunk and 1 big meat chunk. Well, let's find a Bagaceratops. You know what? We have admin commands for just this kind of thing. This is why I am on single player. Bagaceratops. So here we go. We have a bog. And it takes 1, 2, and 3. And he gives us a medium meat chunk and a small meat chunk. So a Bagaceratops just gave us the exact same food as a wadia for 7 less hits. And as a little baby, how long it takes to kill something matters, because, you know, they're doing damage to you. Like, fighting a wadia is a lot more dangerous than fighting a Bagaceratops. So it's worth to kill something that dies in 3 hits than it is to kill something that dies in 10 hits. Does that make sense, hopefully? So the big turtle, the big aggressive turtle, is the same way. It takes a lot of hits to kill. I don't actually know its name to spawn it. I don't think just big turtle will work, but we'll try. Big turtle. Give me the big turtle. Nope, okay. Spawn, critter, turtle? Nope, okay. I don't know what the name of the big turtle is, but it takes a lot of hits to kill, just like wadia does, and it probably doesn't give you enough food to warrant the danger and the amount of time it takes. So my suggestion, especially as a growing, questing baby, is to avoid wadia, avoid the big turtle, and eat Bagaceratops, because for the amount of hits it takes to kill it versus how much food you get, Bagaceratops wins. Let's kill another one just to double check our mounds. Yeah, these things are so cute. 1. Oh, come on. 2, 3. So let's see. We have a little meat chunk. And we have another little meat chunk. And then we have a third little meat chunk. So that time, instead of giving one medium and one small, it gave 3 smalls. But still, it only takes 3 hits to kill it, and you're getting basically the same amount of food as you would from a Wadia, but a lot less work and a lot less time, and as a baby, a lot less damage. So, you know, if you're trying to feed yourself as a baby, try to avoid the dangerous critters like Wadia, who don't really give you that much food for how dangerous they are to kill and how long they take. So one last final thing I'm going to go over before I end this already really long video is emergency food. Because, you know, as you're growing as a little baby, it can be hard to stay fed, especially with critters not giving you a lot of food. And as something like a baby Rex or a baby Tyrannotitan, you're going to be struggling to stay fed. Now, some animals will have the scavenger diet, which you can quest for marks and buy, and that way you can eat bones or the placed carcasses, and that'll be a big relief. But not everybody... Oh my god, you scared me. How dare you? But anyways, not everybody has scavenger. Tyrannotitan, Alio, Dasp, they don't have scavenger. So what do you do if you're starving and critters are just not filling you up, and of course you're too small to really kill other players? Well, that's when you go to salt. Now, salt has the downside that it dehydrates you. Your water is going to drop really, really quickly. So here we have some piles of salt. Now, my recommendation, if you have to eat salt, is to make sure you have fresh water nearby, because it's really easy to kill yourself with dehydration if you're unprepared when you eat salt. So Whistling Columns is a good example, because you either have all this fresh water down to the south, or you have this little lake just north of you. But like if you were to eat salt in Dried Lake or like Broken Tooth, you could really struggle to get to water before you start losing health. Because if we eat some salt to fill up, you get a 2-minute long timer, as you can see above my bar. And now watch my water. Just watch how fast that drops while that's active. It's really quick, and especially on the bigger, slower dinosaurs, it's really easy to accidentally come close to killing yourself because you ate salt and you weren't near a water source to immediately fill back up. I almost did it on Tyrannotitan a few times. Like, it's a real danger, and you need to be aware of it. So my recommendation is to always have a place to go and drink from before you eat salt. Like, be aware of where you're going to go and get food or get water. Because as you can see, my water is dropping alarmingly fast, and it hasn't even been that long. It's only been about a minute, and we've dropped down pretty far. So again, on the safely drinking, this is a nice spot where you can be pretty hidden, and the odds of gators being on this side of the lake are pretty low. And we're just gonna drink water. But yeah, as you can see, I'm almost at half water after that 2-minute debuff. And if you're a slower dinosaur and you don't know where to go for water, you can very easily come close to killing yourself. So if you need to eat salt, just make sure you know where to go to get water afterwards. Have a game plan in mind before you eat that salt. Like, go to hot springs, eat the salt, and then immediately drink the hot springs water. Or here at Whistling, eat the salt and then immediately go to water, because you don't want to accidentally kill yourself that way. So just wanted to make sure I covered that. Like, eating bones and eating the spawn carcasses, finding them, there's maps online for both. A lot of bones are on the beaches as well. So, you know, you can find those. Those aren't too terrible. But if you don't have scavenger and you need to eat an emergency food source, you can eat salt. Just be aware of how fast your water is going to drop and be ready to run to water to drink. Anyways, I think that covers everything. I'm going to just quickly sum it up. To not die while questing, or to have a less chance of dying while questing, you want to not make excessive noise. You want to stay out of open areas and try to make sure you're always in cover. If you have to leave cover to like grab quest items, try to do it quickly. Be aware of your surroundings and listen, because you can save your life just by hearing danger before it sees you. Not all critters are worth eating, The big turtles in Wadia especially take too many hits for how little food they give you. Not worth it. You want to try to drink from shallow water sources, but if you have to drink from big lakes, drink it from like shallow or more protected areas. Don't trust other players. While they could be friendly, there's also an equal chance that they're just trying to get you closer so they can kill you. So, you know, I'm not saying avoid people all the time, but treat people with a bit of caution, because if you don't know them, you can't trust them, and they could just be pretending to be friendly to get you closer in order to eat you, especially on officials. Also, just because they're a herbivore doesn't mean they're not going to kill you. So, you know, I'm not saying you can't trust anybody, even though that is kind of what I'm saying, actually. What I'm saying is, you can interact with people, just be ready to run if it seems like they're going to turn hostile and try to attack you. So, you know, treat players with caution, especially ones who you don't know. Sorry, I'm kind of blanking out right now. But yeah, not all critters are worth eating. Players are not always trustworthy. Some of them will pretend to be friendly. Avoid walking in paths in open areas. So hopefully this will help some people. I know it probably doesn't cover everything people want to know, but it could at least help newer players and people who are struggling to stay alive. I have that whole section about where I like to quest personally and where I think is too dangerous to quest. Again, that's my personal opinion. So maybe that will help people who are struggling. But yeah, just let me know. I hope this helps at least some people out there. And thank you for watching.